Hey, how you doing? Well, I guess you can't answer me, can you? Since I'm a movie. I just didn't think of that before I asked you. Okay, I'm going to tell you how you can forgive anybody for anything. It's really very simple. The number one deal in forgiving people is you have to exist. If you're around, you can forgive whoever, for whatever. So if you find yourself not forgiving somebody, um, then you can just use this. And so what this is your inner vision. Um, and but what you're going to do is you're going to use your inner vision to connect with God. Now, before you turn this into something trite and you think, oh, yeah, well, that's what my church tells me to do, probably isn't exactly like what your church tells you to do. It might be up that alley, but it's much more direct and effective, probably, I'm guessing, than what your church tells you to do. So, um, what happens is, uh, what you do is you say, you get a signal like that looks like this. And you say, am I able to forgive so-and-so for doing such and such? And I'm getting signals, but that doesn't mean you will. If you're not forgiving them, you will probably get no on one or both of those. You might get you're able to, but you haven't, for example. Have I forgiven so-and-so? I get yes, but you might not get a signal like that. And when your signal would look like this if you don't get a signal. Duh. It would look like there's no signal. Um, okay. So then you have to ask, okay, like, what did the person do? When did they do it? And get an exact date and time helps because it makes it specific. So the reason people wonder, why do you get an exact date and time? Why do you need that? But you can do it. What you find is you're saying, well, gee, I don't remember. And we used to have people pair off and do their trauma together from early childhood and from this lifetime. Their traumatic string of trauma that formed them, the main string of trauma. And we did this in classes. And now we just have a lesson on it in the web college, so you can do the lesson. And because everybody has one, you have this string of trauma, some of them happening as early as conception, where you went into trauma. And if you get like the exact, by dating it, what I mean is 6 months in vitro would be an in vitro traumatic experience. A lot of people have in vitro traumatic experiences and they never access them in psychoanalysis. They can't remember them, and when they have something that touches on one, it just looks very symbolic. So that the therapist will interpret it symbolically, and it's not really meant to be a symbolic interpretation. What you need to do is get the date, time, and what happened. And one of the things, by the way, one of mine, it was just a really odd one, which was that my mother tended to talk to herself while I was in the womb. She spent a lot of time alone, running a business where she was the sole person in the business, and my father was out making deliveries. and so she was alone for a lot of the day, and she would talk to herself incessantly. And there were certain things she said that I traumatized myself with, and the trauma opened up and stayed open for about 3 years. So I was, around 2.5 when the that particular trauma closed. And when a trauma closes, what it means is it sort of gets locked in place, and you're not able to, you know, it's much harder to access it. And of course, if you're 2.5 years old, it's hard to access it anyway. And it's hard enough. Like, I'll tell you, I had a friend who traumatized himself when he was like 18. That's pretty old to traumatize yourself, but he was a special case. And he ended up doing a stint in a mental hospital for several years. And then when I spoke to him, that was long ago behind him. I hadn't talked to him for like 50 years, and then we started chatting, and I was asking him about this thing where I knew he traumatized himself because he smashed his head into the window of his car and broke the window. It was shatterproof glass, but it all went into that spiderweb pattern that they go into, and he was just in so much pain, and he had absolutely no recollection of the incident, even though it happened when he was 18, and he had gone presumably through therapy and a mental institution and everything else, and he still had no recollection of it. Unbelievable. But this is what happens when trauma closes. It can be very hard to recall. It's hard to recall, but not hard to access. And one thing that happens when you access trauma is your recollections open up. And so you remember past life incidents and incidents when you were in earlier forms than human also. So you have the ability to do this. You're able to do it. When you can ask, you can just get a signal. Am I able to do that? And you may get a signal on that, but it may be an ability that you have to develop. Or you may not get a signal because it may be an ability you have to develop, but anybody can do it, okay? So that's one of the nice things about God, is that God is inside of all of us and outside of all of us, and God is everywhere and can be accessed in each moment anytime we want. And inner vision is actually simply, you know, Panavision or whatever. It's it's all encompassing. You can see anything if you look at it enough. So anyway, so what you would do is you would simply ask, okay, what did he do? When did he do it? This is how you forgive somebody. You're getting back to how to forgive anybody for anything. um, so you go back to this. You don't actually have to regress into the time, but you access it, and then you say, okay, and did I do something to myself or somebody else? And if you get yes, that is the way you traumatize yourself is by doing something to yourself or somebody else. And a lot of times, like for example, I did one of these yesterday, and I simply asked, have I forgiven so and so, and I got no, and then I asked, okay, about what she did or didn't do, and then I can't even remember exactly how I worked it, but you can also ask what people didn't do that you wanted them to do. And then there's a whole category of this in the web college, by the way. It's called non-occurrences. And a lot of people have non-occurrences with parents, where the parents didn't do things that, they wanted them to do. Like pick them up when they were crying is a no-brainer, for example. And a lot of parents, for whatever reason, have left babies crying in their cribs for hours. It creates an aberrated person to do that. But anyway, uh, we have a lot of aberrated people running around shooting people. I mean, that's that's what it's turning into. Is that they express it by shooting people. They go into the high school and they shoot a bunch of people, and it can all be cured. But you have to access it first, and to access it, you have to want to cure it, and then it's gone, and you don't need to access it anymore. After you cure it, it's gone. That's the idea. That's what happens. That's what inner vision does. It's curative. You cure things with it. And of course, it's not you curing it, is it? It is and it isn't, because you got to take the step, but it's God that does the curing. You can't cure anything. You're an idiot. I think we both know that, right? If you don't, then you're in serious trouble. Okay? You're going to lose money in the stock market if you don't know you're an idiot. So, which is okay. Go ahead. I'll take it. That's what I do. I'm a stock trader. That's what I do for a living. But anyway, so you then ask, okay, so did I do this or that or the other thing, whatever you suspect you did. And in my case, all I did was I judged this person. I had a negative judgment about the person. That's doing something to somebody. And I didn't even realize I was doing anything to them. I just thought I was having my judgment, it's not going to affect them in any way. Hopefully it didn't. But maybe it did, see, because we're all psychically connected. Everybody in the world is psychically connected through a web of consciousness called the noosphere. And if you don't know what that is, I don't blame you. Most people don't. So I'm not offended, You could Google it if you want to find out more about it. It probably won't say what I just said, because I know things most people don't know, because I've done a lot of using of my inner vision and asked God a lot of questions. I'm always pestering God with another question. That's how I learn things. It's a good thing to do, just be a pest with God. I could just see God sitting on his throne. Oh no, you again? What are you doing? You're back here already? You were here 5 minutes ago. What's wrong with you? Get a life. So, then what you do then, once you find out what you did, is you ask if you've cured it. And if not, look for something else you did and, find things you did, or maybe something you withheld or whatever, until you test that you have cured the trauma. And at that point, test, do I forgive so-and-so? And you will get yes, most likely, unless you have yet another. See, the fact is that there may be a lot of people who you don't forgive about things, who you have a lot of traumatic incidents with. It might take you years to come to a forgiveness of this person by meticulously finding and curing each and everything. And once you've done that, I don't know what will happen for them, but once you've done that, you will be a happier and more loving person, which is the idea of forgiving people. We forgive people. We're not trying to do anything for them. I have only the F word for them. It's for us we're doing this. We're doing this to feel good. Why do you think you cure things? You know, when you're sick, you don't feel good. That's what it means to be. People say, I feel sick, and it means they're not feeling good. You know, when you get the flu, you don't feel good. You can cure the flu. That's a whole other video. But for this one, this makes you feel good, just like when you cure the flu. So that's today's lesson.